Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. This episode is part of our Indies Introduced series, where we spotlight debut authors handpicked by booksellers from around the country. In each episode, a bookseller from the Indies Introduced panel will interview the author of a debut title featured in our program.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jessica from Books Inc. in the Bay Area, and I'm so excited to speak with Victoria Zeller, author of One of the Boys. Victoria Zeller is a trans writer born and raised in Buffalo, New York, where she still proudly resides. A former football player and a lifelong fan, her initial focus was sports journalism before she made a sharp pivot to writing about queers who can't stay out of trouble. Her sports writing can be found at Defactor, while her manic minute-by-minute sports analysis can be found on Blue Sky at dirtbagqueer.rocks. One of the Boys is her debut novel and goes on sale May 13th. And I hope you all rush to your local indie bookstore and pre-order it today, or grab it right off the shelf. So I'm so excited to get to speak with you today, Victoria.
Thank you. Happy to be here. We had such an adventure getting ready, technical difficulties, but excited to talk about something that's more fun, which is the book.
Yes. I felt like every sort of broad piece of the book was so grounded in reality. Like I could turn a corner and I would see, you know, this high school, or I could walk into any football locker room and find these characters. But of course, the character at the heart of the book is Grace. And I was really curious if she, came to you in a dream one night, fully realized, or if there's sort of a long process to get to know her and to find the meat of her story.
For me, with pretty much all my characters, it's definitely a process. With Grace, I had the like broad shape of her like whole deal pretty early of like, okay, we have this kid who's like kind of a jock. She kind of has rocks for brains, but she's also like sensitive and insightful, and like etc. etc. But like she is not very good at like expressing herself or like articulating any of that. For the first year that I worked on this story, it was quite different because Grace started off this book closeted. So it took me a while to like figure out that like, okay, no, we have to like pivot from that. We have to do this other thing, which is obviously the best call for the story. It would not have had time to do all that other stuff. The core like grating heart of Grace was always very much there from the beginning, but I have to spend time with my characters in order to like see the ways that they'll surprise me, the ways that like, oh, it turns out Grace has this interest in like flowers and gardening that was not there at the start. I ended up finding that as I went. So yeah, I'd say a little bit already there, a little bit I had to find her.
Nice. I loved the friendships between all of the characters and the way the characters were surprised to find themselves stepping outside their comfort zone to make and maintain friendships. Um, and I'm curious, who do you think you would have been friends with in your high school experience if you went to the same high school that Grace does?
Hmm. Tough question because I think at a certain point in my high school experience, it would have been the jocks. It would have been like the like Ahmed Dre crowd. Um, so like I definitely always like friendly with kids like that. But the actual answer might be Zoe, who is the friend. She's on student council. I think she's the treasurer. And she's like very type A, all about her grades. Yeah, I would say that like either or really is who I personally would have like probably been closest with. I think aspirationally I would have been like, who's that cool skater stoner boy? I kind of want to go hang out with him. But probably in actuality, I would spend less time with characters like Jamie or with characters like Robin and I would probably end up spending time with the jocks and the nerds, for lack of a better word.
As an sort of avowed theater nerd myself, I was absolutely delighted to find myself in this locker room with a bunch of jocks
Hmm.
and find that sort of like reading experience of I'm friends with these people when
Hmm.
I wouldn't have gotten to be friends with them in my
Yeah.
own high school experience. So that was a really wonderful piece for me. Speaking of that, hindsight of adulthood, I think can be very cloudy when it comes to high school years. Where you hang on to steal from the marketing material of the book, like the epic highs and lows, and you kind of miss that mid range that was probably the majority.
Hmm.
How did it feel for you as an adult to be spending so much time with high schoolers, at least in your mind?
It was weird. Yeah, it was a mixed bag because it was also fun because the silly low stakes hangouts of being the exact age where most of you and your friends have jobs, so you have money, and maybe one friend has a car, so oh cool, you get to take your first wobbly steps into being able to figure out what it is to live on your own, to be an adult. But man, kids, being a high school senior just profoundly sucks. These kids are under so much pressure from every angle, that trying to put myself back in that mindset was so tiresome. And it wasn't even social clickiness. That's the only like for me that was yeah, the fun part of school. That's where my friends are. But just the onslaught of college prep and you're supposed to have fun, but not too much fun, and you're supposed to make opinions, or you are supposed to make decisions that are going to set you up for the whole rest of your life. And just I'm a kid. I'm 17. I am not I am absolutely not mentally, physically, whatever prepared to do that. So I did not go into this book thinking that oh wow, this is kind of going to be a book about how much being 17 sucks. But it really did at a certain point. It I think also when I started writing this book, I was, geez, I think I was 22. So I was not as far removed from it as I am now. I'm turning 27 relatively soon. So yeah, I have a strange time looking back on that. I have frequently joked that I'm glad that I don't have to live in Grace's head anymore because it sucks. Um, but a strange experience for me, to be sure.
Yes. And I was, I mean, so charmed in the ways in which that sort of like, oh my God, I have to choose what to do with the rest of my life piece of being a senior in high school, how that dovetailed with Grace's sort of personal journey about who she is as an individual. And so it was
Mhm.
like she'd like made the big choice, right? And the fact that you still have to like wake up the next day
Yeah.
after you made the big choice and keep living life, I thought was really beautifully sort of blended together in that, oh my God, do I go to college? Do I go to community college? Do I play sports when I go to college? Like all of those questions. Um, I just, they're perfect. It was pitch perfect.
Thank you.
um, and it strikes me that sports, particularly team sports, is sort of an interesting backdrop and common thread for our Indies Introduce titles this season, um, for stories about confronting individual identity. And I was curious if that was an intentional choice for you, or maybe to explain it differently, would we still meet Grace if she was on the debate team instead of the football team? Did she
Um,
need the epic highs and lows of high school football to find herself?
oh gosh. So I grew up like as a trans woman. I mostly read books intended for boys when I was a kid. So I grew up reading like sports novels. I grew up reading like Matt Christopher, many other authors who I cannot think of at this very moment. But like I knew that I wanted to tell a like I knew that I wanted to tell a sports story, not just because like I sports read sometimes and I'm very passionate about football and other sports, um, but that I had never seen a transport story done in a way that didn't or like at all. Or if I have, I doubt it was good. So like I knew that I wanted to tell a trans sports story. And also in terms of in terms of meeting Grace if she was on the debate team instead of football. I think for me, it's very key that athletics is something that you perform with your like physical body, which like obviously not to say that like the brain and the body it's all, you know, it's all one
Sure.
machine. But like I think it's I think it's important that we get to see Grace do something with a body that she feels conflictingly about, and have this be a like very positive, like empowering, I guess, uh, experience for her. Um, I think I think like when I said earlier that she has rocks for braids, I was being a little unfair. That's not true. Grace has intelligence and she expresses it physically, which is a whole other,
Mhm.
you know, which is a like whole other skill set that I don't have. Um, but she does. Uh, so I think for this character, it had to be a sport.
Mhm.
Um, and for me, it had to be football is such a big part of my past and such a big part of like what I care about now. Like I knew that like this had to be book one for me.
That's awesome. Not only are our characters so fully fleshed and like I felt like I could, poke one of them. The communities that they're living in, as students in their like little subcultures of jocks and theater kids and nerds and those sorts of things, also very lived in, very real life. Um, were you writing those communities based on your own experience of real life communities, or was it trying to sort of scratch an aspirational itch of I wish these communities behaved more like this?
I think it's a bit of both because like my my personal school experience was like, okay, I played sports, but I was also kind of like a video game dork, and I was also in a lot of AP classes, and I was also like friends with like a whole bunch of like stoners. So like for me, it's like it's like all of these groups overlap and spill into one another and blend, and you get all these like interesting um kinds of people who are all forced to be in one building at once, which is like very like tasty to me in terms of like writing a book and writing these characters. So like, for me, it is definitely influenced by the very like cool and interesting ways that like high schools can like force different kinds of people to like interact and hang out. Um, I'm trying to figure out how I want to put this. Grace has a strong core of like male friends. I have a strong core of male friends from high school who I'm going to hang out with this evening as we record on the day of the NFL draft. I don't think this is going to drop for a couple weeks, but that's okay. So like I'm definitely like writing about like oh like mostly male friend group. One of the people transitions, keep on hanging out. I am writing about dynamic that I know exists because I've experienced it firsthand, and also because I know other people who have experienced this firsthand. In terms of like aspirationally, like I mean, there's a lot of like really chill men in this book, that like I could see some people being like, well, that's unrealistic. Um, and I disagree. I don't think it's unrealistic that all of these dudes would be like cool with Grace. I think it is certainly not the entire 50-person football team, but it's like most people are like yeah, sure, whatever. She's good at kicking. Uh I could I mean like it also very much varies. Where do you live? What kind of school is it? What's the like income bracket at the high school? I guess like aspirationally, in as much as like I wanted to create a world in which like she would have friends from all these like different groups who not to spoil anything, but kind of the whole point of Act 3 is like everything bends and bleeds and runs together, and you have like combinations of people hanging out. It's like, oh, I never would have guessed that X and Y would like get along, but cool, that's awesome. I think that answered the question. That was long-winded. Uh, Apologies if that was a little, I don't know, labyrinthine, but I tried my best.
No, I liked it. And I also loved the way that by blending those things together, you sort of put those friendships on display in really beautiful ways. Not just in the ways that, the friend group show up for Grace, but also the ways that they show up for each other.
Hmm.
I'm thinking of the name just flew right out of my head, but one of the characters has a child.
Yes.
Um, and the ways that they show up for that character. Um, and I also just love seeing male friendships portrayed so wholly
Hmm.
in literature, especially when I feel like a lot of times it's more of a caricature of male
Hmm.
friendship.
Yeah, that was I feel like I feel like very frequently I read versions of male friendship where I'm like, this is like just a bit off. Um, I tried to I tried to be like as grounded with it as I could while being like, okay, these are the strengths of a like stereotypical male friendship and also some of the weaknesses. Like, okay, these dudes are gonna show up for you. Sometimes showing up for you means they're gonna like, they're going to like physically stand up for you, or they might have your back, but that doesn't mean that you like talk about your feelings. um
Yes.
so yeah, like thinking about different friendship dynamics was very big for me in figuring out what this book was.
Well, I think for me, in reading One of the Boys and um, discussing it, trying to come up with questions, like it was so magical and so perfect as it is that I'm like, what do I need to say? Like the book says it. So thank you so much for sharing this tender, awkward, joyful book with us. And I hope everyone rushes to their bookstore on May 13th to pick up One of the Boys.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA site at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!